The candles flickered on the chocolate cake as Eliza Morrison blew out 32 flames. Her brother Jake raised his beer and grinned. Here's to another year closer to being gone. Everyone laughed. 3 days later, her phone rang with a call that would make those words haunt her forever. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. The morning of her birthday started like any other Tuesday in Portland, Oregon. Eliza had been working as a graphic designer at a small advertising firm downtown for the past 4 years, living in a modest apartment in the Pearl District. She wasn't expecting much fanfare. Birthdays had never been a big deal in the Morrison family. Her parents lived in Phoenix now, enjoying their retirement, and her younger brother Jake was the only family she had nearby. Around noon, Jake surprised her at work with a small chocolate cake from the bakery down the street. Her co-workers gathered around her desk, singing an off-key version of Happy Birthday while she felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. She'd always preferred quiet celebrations, but Jake had other plans. "We're doing this right tonight," he announced, cutting generous slices for everyone. "Dinner at Romano's, then drinks at that new place on Division." Eliza tried to protest, but Jake had already invited half her office. Her colleague Sarah Chen clapped her hands together excitedly. "I haven't been out in weeks. This is perfect timing." By 6 that evening, they'd gathered at Romano's, a cozy Italian restaurant with checkered tablecloths and dim lighting. Jake had managed to secure a large corner table, and the group included Sarah, her boyfriend Marcus, their mutual friend David Patterson from college, and Jake's girlfriend Nicole Barnes. The conversation flowed as easily as the wine, covering everything from work gossip to weekend hiking plans. Jake stood up halfway through dinner, slightly tipsy from the Chianti, and raised his glass. His sandy hair was messy as always, and his green eyes sparkled with mischief. "To my big sister Eliza," he began, his voice carrying across their section of the restaurant. 32 years old today, which means," he paused for dramatic effect, "another year closer to being gone." The table erupted in laughter. Even Eliza couldn't help but smile at her brother's twisted sense of humor. It was such a Jake thing to say. He'd always had a dark, sarcastic wit that somehow made even morbid observations sound funny. "Jake," Nicole swatted his arm playfully, "you can't say that." "What? It's true for all of us," he shrugged, taking another sip of wine. "Every birthday is just marking time until the inevitable." "You're so morbid," Sarah laughed, shaking her head. "Let's toast to life, not death." "Fine, fine," Jake conceded, raising his glass again. "To Eliza, may she live to see many more years of putting up with her annoying little brother." They clinked glasses, and the moment passed into the warm hum of dinner conversation. Eliza felt grateful for these people in her life, even if Jake's comment lingered in the back of her mind longer than it should have. After dinner, they moved to the Copper Fox, a trendy bar that had opened recently on Division Street. The place was packed with young professionals unwinding after work, craft cocktails flowing freely. They found a high-top table near the back, and Jake insisted on buying rounds for everyone. As the night wore on, the conversation grew more philosophical. David, who worked in tech and always had opinions about everything, started talking about life insurance policies and retirement planning. "You know, most people our age don't think about this stuff, but we should," he said, gesturing with his bourbon. "Statistically speaking, Jake's right. Every year does bring us closer to the end. The smart thing is to plan for it." "God, David, you sound like my father," Marcus groaned. "I'm just saying," David continued, undeterred. "My company offers this great life insurance plan. Term life, whole life, all that stuff. Most people think they don't need it until it's too late." Eliza found herself only half listening. She was tired from the long day, and the wine was making her drowsy. The bar had gotten louder as the night progressed, and she was starting to feel overwhelmed by the crowd and noise. "I think I'm going to head home," she announced around 10:30, gathering her purse. "Already?" Jake looked disappointed. "Come on, the night's still young." "Some of us have to work tomorrow," she reminded him, giving him a hug. Thanks for dinner, though. It was really sweet of you. She said her goodbyes to the group and caught an Uber back to her apartment. The ride through Portland's quiet streets gave her time to reflect on the evening. Despite Jake's morbid toast, it had been a good birthday, simple but good. Her apartment felt peaceful after the noise of the bar. She kicked off her heels and changed into comfortable pajamas, then settled onto her couch with a cup of tea. The view from her living room window showed the city lights twinkling below, and she felt a sense of contentment wash over her. She thought about David's comments about life insurance and planning for the future. At 32, she'd been focused on building her career and saving for a house someday. The idea of planning for her own death seemed absurdly premature. She was healthy, active, with no family history of major health problems. Her grandparents had all lived into their 80s or 90s. Still, Jake's toast echoed in her mind as she got ready for bed. Another year closer to being gone. It was meant as a joke, but there was an uncomfortable truth to it that she couldn't quite shake. The next morning, Wednesday, she woke up feeling slightly hungover but otherwise normal. Work was busy. They were in the middle of a major campaign for a local restaurant chain, and deadlines were tight. She threw herself into the project, grateful for the distraction. Thursday morning brought an unexpected email from her mother in Phoenix. Her parents had decided to update their wills and insurance policies, and her mother wanted to discuss some family financial matters. It struck Eliza as an odd coincidence, given the conversation at the bar 2 nights earlier. She called her mother during lunch break, stepping outside the office building to get some fresh air. The conversation was routine. Her parents wanted to make sure she and Jake were listed correctly as beneficiaries on various accounts. Nothing dramatic or concerning, just the kind of administrative task that comes with getting older. "You know, sweetheart," her mother said toward the end of the call, "you might want to think about getting some life insurance yourself. Nothing major, just something basic. Your father and I wish we'd started earlier." "Mom, I'm 32. I'm not exactly planning on dying anytime soon." "Of course not, dear. But the younger you are when you start, the lower the premiums. It's just good financial planning." After hanging up, Eliza found herself thinking about the strange timing of it all. Jake's toast, David's lecture about insurance, now her mother bringing up the same topic. It felt like the universe was trying to tell her something, though she couldn't imagine what. Friday evening, she was at home working on a freelance logo design project when her phone rang. The caller ID showed a number she didn't recognize, with a Portland area code. She almost let it go to voicemail, but something made her answer. "Hello, is this Eliza Morrison?" The woman's voice was professional but warm. "Yes, this is Eliza." "My name is Patricia Williams, and I'm calling from Cascade Life Insurance. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time." Eliza's grip tightened on her phone. Cold calls from insurance companies weren't unusual, but the timing felt eerie after the week's strange coincidences. "I'm sorry, but I'm not interested in purchasing life insurance right now," she said, ready to hang up. "Oh, I'm not calling to sell you anything, Miss Morrison. I'm calling because you already have a policy with us, a substantial one." Eliza frowned, sinking back into her couch. "I think you have the wrong person. I've never purchased life insurance from your company." "Let me verify some information. Are you Eliza Catherine Morrison, born March 15, 1992, residing at 1247 Northwest Hoyt Street, apartment 4B? The specificity of the information sent a chill down her spine. "How do you have my address?" "Miss Morrison, according to our records, you have a whole life insurance policy with Cascade Life Insurance worth $2.3 million. The policy was purchased 18 months ago, and the premiums have been paid automatically through a bank account ending in 7439. Eliza's mind raced. She didn't have $2.3 million in life insurance, and she certainly didn't have a bank account ending in those numbers. Her checking account ended in 2847, and her savings account ended in 1156. "This has to be some kind of mistake," she said slowly. "I never applied for any policy with your company." "I understand your confusion. This situation does require immediate attention. The policy was purchased by someone claiming to be you, with all the proper documentation. However, we've recently discovered some irregularities in the application process that have triggered a fraud investigation. Patricia's voice became more serious. Miss Morrison, I need to ask you some questions. Have you given anyone access to your personal information recently? Social security number, birth certificate, bank account details? No, of course not. But even as she said it, Eliza's mind began cataloging possibilities. Her purse had been stolen 6 months ago at a coffee shop, but she'd immediately canceled her credit cards and gotten a new driver's license. Her apartment had been broken into the previous year, though nothing seemed to be missing. What about family members or close friends? Anyone who might have access to your personal documents? A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. Eliza thought about her parents in Phoenix, Jake with his spare key to her apartment, even her coworkers who might have seen personal information on her desk. The idea that someone close to her could be involved made her stomach turn. I need to see this policy, she said firmly. Can you email me the documentation? I'm afraid I can't send sensitive financial documents via email for security reasons. However, I can schedule an appointment for you to come to our office tomorrow. We're located downtown on Southwest Morrison Street. The address was only a few blocks from Eliza's office. What time? How about 11 a.m.? This gives us time to pull all the relevant files. After hanging up, Eliza sat in stunned silence. A $2.3 million life insurance policy in her name, purchased without her knowledge. The implications were terrifying. Someone had not only stolen her identity, but had also placed a substantial bet on her death. She called Jake immediately. "Hey, birthday girl," he answered cheerfully. "Still recovering from your wild night out?" "Jake, I need to ask you something serious. Have you ever given my personal information to anyone? Social security number, bank details, anything like that?" "What? No, of course not. Why would you ask that?" She explained the phone call, watching Jake's tone shift from confusion to alarm. "Holy shit, Eliza, that's seriously messed up. Who would do something like that?" "I don't know, but I'm meeting with the insurance company tomorrow. Can you come with me?" "Absolutely. I'll take the morning off work." That night, sleep eluded Eliza completely. She found herself analyzing every relationship, every interaction over the past 2 years. Who had access to her apartment? Her parents had keys, Jake had keys, and she'd given temporary keys to a few people over the years. Her neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, when she went on vacation, her friend Sarah once when she was locked out. She thought about the break-in from last year. The police had said it looked like someone was searching for something specific, not just grabbing valuable items. At the time, she'd assumed they were looking for cash or electronics. Now she wondered if they'd been after her personal documents. The next morning, Eliza dressed professionally and met Jake outside the Cascade Life Insurance Building. The modern glass structure rose 20 floors into the gray Portland sky, corporate and imposing. Patricia Williams turned out to be a woman in her 50s, with kind eyes and silver hair pulled back in a meat bun. She led them to a small conference room filled with manila folders and documents. "Thank you for coming in, Miss Morrison. I'm going to show you exactly what we're dealing with." She opened the first folder, revealing a life insurance application filled out in neat handwriting. Eliza's heart stopped as she recognized the handwriting. It was nearly identical to her own, but with subtle differences in the letter formations. This application was submitted online initially, then followed up with physical documents mailed to our office. Birth certificate, social security card, driver's license copies, everything appeared legitimate. Eliza studied the birth certificate copy. It looked authentic, but something felt wrong about the seal. "This isn't my birth certificate. I mean, it has my information, but I've never seen this particular copy before." Patricia nodded grimly. "We suspected as much. The paper quality is slightly different from authentic Oregon State documents from that time period. Someone created a very sophisticated forgery." Jake leaned forward, examining the documents. "What about the bank account for the premium payments?" "That's where things get really interesting," Patricia said, opening another folder. "The account was opened at Pacific Northwest Bank 2 years ago.
The person who opened it had all of Eliza's identification documents, plus utility bills and other proof of residence. She showed them bank statements from an account Eliza had never seen before. Regular deposits had been made to cover the insurance premiums, $847 monthly for 18 months. Someone has been depositing over $800 a month into this account just to keep this policy active, Patricia continued. That's more than $15,000 invested in premiums so far.
The math was staggering. Someone had spent considerable money maintaining a life insurance policy on Eliza's life, money that would only be recovered if she died. "Do you have any idea who opened the bank account?" Eliza asked. "The bank is conducting their own investigation, but I can tell you that the person who opened it knew an extraordinary amount about your life. They had utility bills, employment records, even medical records." Jake's face had gone pale. Medical records? How is that possible? "That's what's most concerning," Patricia admitted. "Access to medical records suggests someone with inside knowledge or professional connections. This wasn't a random identity theft. This was targeted and methodical." Eliza felt sick. Someone had been planning this for years, collecting her information piece by piece, building a complete false identity to purchase a massive life insurance policy. The question that terrified her most was whether they were planning to collect on that policy. "What happens now?" she asked. "We've already flagged the policy as fraudulent and frozen any potential payouts. We're working with law enforcement to investigate the identity theft. But, Miss Morrison, I have to ask, have you noticed anything unusual in your daily routine lately? Anyone following you, strange phone calls, unusual encounters?" Eliza thought about the past few weeks. Her car had been broken into the previous month, though nothing was stolen. She'd received several wrong number calls recently. Her neighbor mentioned seeing unfamiliar people around the apartment building. "There have been some things," she admitted quietly. "I thought they were just random coincidences." Patricia exchanged a meaningful look with Jake. "Miss Morrison, I think you should consider that whoever did this might be monitoring your activities. A $2.3 million payout is significant motivation for someone to escalate their plans." The weight of her words settled over the room like a heavy blanket. Someone wasn't just stealing Eliza's identity. They might be planning to kill her for the insurance money. Jake reached over and squeezed his sister's hand. "We're going to figure this out," he said firmly, "and we're going to catch whoever is doing this." But as they left the insurance office, Eliza couldn't shake the feeling that they were already being watched. Detective Michael Torres of the Portland Police Bureau's Financial Crimes Unit had seen identity theft cases before, but nothing quite like this. When Patricia Williams contacted the police about the fraudulent life insurance policy, he'd expected a typical case of stolen Social Security numbers and credit card fraud. What he found instead was a meticulously planned operation that had been running for over 2 years. Eliza sat across from Detective Torres in his cramped office at the Central Precinct, Jake beside her for moral support. Torres was a lean man in his 40s with graying temples and tired eyes that suggested he'd seen too much of humanity's darker side. "I've been reviewing the timeline," Torres said, spreading documents across his desk. "The first unauthorized use of your information dates back to May 2023. Someone used your identity to establish a credit line at a furniture store in Beaverton." Eliza shook her head. "I've never lived in Beaverton. I don't even shop there." "Exactly. But here's what's interesting. They never maxed out the credit line. They made small purchases, paid them off promptly, built up a good credit history under your name. Classic long-term identity theft strategy." Torres pulled out another file. "Then, in August 2023, someone used your credentials to open a checking account at Pacific Northwest Bank. Again, they were careful. Small deposits, no suspicious activity, just building a financial footprint." Jake leaned forward. "So they were setting up the insurance policy from the beginning." "That's my assessment. Whoever did this understood that insurance companies verify credit history and financial stability. They spent months creating the perfect applicant profile." Torres opened his laptop and turned it toward them.
Security camera footage from Pacific Northwest Bank played on the screen, showing a woman in her 30s with dark hair and sunglasses approaching a teller window. This is from the day the account was opened. Do you recognize her? Eliza studied the grainy footage. The woman was roughly her height and build, but the sunglasses and angle made identification difficult. Something about her posture seemed familiar, but she couldn't place it. I'm not sure. Maybe. The quality isn't great. We're working with the bank's security team to enhance the footage. What I can tell you is that this person knew exactly what documentation to bring and how to answer the verification questions. She had your mother's maiden name, the name of your first pet, your high school, information that goes beyond what's publicly available.
The implications were chilling. This wasn't a stranger who'd stolen her wallet or hacked her computer. This was someone who knew intimate details about her life, her history, her family. Torres continued reviewing the timeline. The medical records are particularly concerning. In September 2023, someone requested copies of your medical files from 3 different healthcare providers you've used over the past 5 years. How is that legal? It's not, but they posed as you, provided the right identification numbers, and claimed they needed the records for a new doctor. Medical offices don't always verify these requests as thoroughly as they should. Jake ran his hands through his hair in frustration. So this person has been systematically stealing pieces of my sister's life for 2 years, and nobody noticed? Unfortunately, that's exactly what happened. Each individual incident looked routine. A credit application here, a bank account there, medical records for a doctor's visit. No single institution saw the full picture. Torres pulled out a thick manila folder. But here's where we might catch a break. The insurance company requires a medical exam for policies over $2 million. Someone had to impersonate you for a physical examination. He opened the folder to reveal photographs from the insurance medical exam. A woman sat in a clinical examination room, her face partially obscured by the angle and medical equipment, but clearly visible enough for identification. Eliza's blood ran cold as she stared at the photograph. The woman looked remarkably like her. Same hair color, similar facial structure, even wearing clothes that Eliza recognized from her own wardrobe. "Oh my God," she whispered. "That's not me, but she looks exactly like me." "More than that," Torres said grimly. "Look at this medical report." The examination results showed normal vital signs, healthy blood work, and a clean bill of health, exactly what would be expected for someone Eliza's age. But there were subtle details that didn't match her actual medical history. The report mentions a small scar on the left wrist from a childhood accident. Do you have that scar? Eliza checked her wrist. No, I don't. But someone who knew about your medical history might know that detail was in your records from years ago, even if it's not accurate now. Torres leaned back in his chair. Here's my theory. Someone has been studying you for years, possibly someone you know personally. They collected enough information to create a false identity, then found someone who physically resembles you to carry out the insurance fraud. The idea that she'd been under surveillance for years made Eliza's skin crawl. How many times had someone been watching her, learning her habits, documenting her life? "What about the money trail?" Jake asked. "Whoever is paying for those insurance premiums has to leave some kind of financial footprint." Torres nodded approvingly. "Good thinking. That's our best lead right now. The premium payments come from a business account registered to something called Northwest Property Management, LLC. He handed them a printout of business registration documents. The LLC was registered in Delaware, a common choice for people who want to hide ownership details. But the business address listed is here in Portland. The address was in an industrial area near the river that Eliza knew vaguely. Warehouses, small manufacturing businesses, nothing she'd ever had reason to visit. "We're planning to visit that address tomorrow morning," Torres said. "I can't have civilians involved in an active investigation, but I'll keep you updated on what we find." As they prepared to leave, Torres handed Eliza his business card. "I want you to be extremely careful over the next few weeks. Change your daily routines, vary your routes to work, consider staying somewhere other than your apartment occasionally.
If someone has invested this much time and money in this scheme, they might be getting desperate to see a return on their investment. The drive back to Eliza's apartment was tense and quiet. Jake insisted on coming up to check her locks and security, then announced he was staying the night on her couch. "You don't have to do that," Eliza protested weakly. "Yes, I do. Someone out there has been planning. I don't even want to think about what they've been planning. You're not staying alone until we figure this out." That evening, Eliza found herself going through her belongings with new eyes. Her jewelry box, her desk drawers, her closet, looking for any sign that someone had been in her apartment, studying her possessions, learning her secrets. In her bedroom closet, she discovered something that made her heart race. A small gap in the back corner where she usually kept a shoebox of old photographs and documents. The box was still there, but it had been moved. The dust pattern on the shelf showed clearly that it had been shifted several inches from its original position.
"Jake," she called out, her voice shaking, "come look at this." Jake examined the disturbed dust pattern and the slightly askew positioning of the box. "When was the last time you looked through this stuff?" "Months ago, maybe last Christmas when I was looking for old photos to send to Mom." They carefully went through the contents of the box. Birth certificate, social security card, high school yearbooks, childhood medical records, family photographs dating back decades. Everything seemed to be there, but the knowledge that someone had been handling these intimate pieces of her life felt violated in a way she couldn't articulate. "They photographed everything," Jake said quietly. "They probably spent hours here, documenting every detail of your life." As they secured the apartment for the night, checking windows and door locks, Eliza realized that her sense of safety and privacy had been shattered. Someone had been inside her home, inside her life, planning something terrible. The question that kept her awake that night was whether they were planning to wait for natural causes to claim their $2.3 million investment, or if they intended to help things along. The next morning, Detective Torres stood outside a nondescript warehouse in Portland's industrial district, backup units positioned at strategic points around the building. The address for Northwest Property Management, LLC, had led them to this gray concrete structure wedged between an auto parts distributor and a commercial bakery. While Torres conducted his official investigation, Eliza found herself unable to concentrate on anything else. She'd called in sick to work, spending the morning pacing her apartment, despite Jake's attempts to distract her with breakfast and mindless television. Around 10 a.m., her phone rang. Sarah Chen's name appeared on the caller ID. "Hey, how are you feeling?" Sarah's voice carried genuine concern. "You sounded awful when you called in sick." "I'm dealing with some personal stuff," Eliza replied carefully. Detective Torres had advised her not to discuss the case with anyone who wasn't absolutely necessary. "Anything I can help with? You've seemed really stressed lately." Something in Sarah's tone made Eliza pause. "What do you mean, lately?" "Oh, just distracted at work, leaving early, those weird phone calls you've been getting. I noticed you've been looking over your shoulder a lot, too." Eliza felt a chill. She hadn't realized her anxiety had been so obvious to her coworkers. "Have you noticed anyone unusual around the office? Anyone asking questions about me?" "Actually, now that you mention it," Sarah's voice became thoughtful. "There was this woman who came by last month asking about you. She said she was from your insurance company, verifying employment for some kind of policy update." "What did she look like?" "Brunette, about our age, professional looking. She had all the right credentials and paperwork. I didn't think much of it at the time, but she asked a lot of specific questions about your schedule, your responsibilities, even your salary range." Eliza's heart began racing. "Did you tell her anything?" "Just basic employment verification stuff, how long you'd worked there, your job title. But Eliza, she already seemed to know a lot about you. She mentioned details about projects you'd worked on, clients you'd dealt with. I assumed it was all legitimate." After hanging up, Eliza immediately called Detective Torres, but his phone went straight to voicemail.
She left an urgent message about the insurance impersonator who'd visited her workplace. Jake emerged from the kitchen with coffee and noticed her pale expression. What's wrong now? She explained Sarah's revelation about the mysterious woman. Jake's face darkened as the implications became clear. So not only did they steal your identity, they were actively investigating your life. This is seriously messed up, Eliza. Her phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Stop digging or face the consequences. Jake read the message over her shoulder. We're calling Torres right now. But before they could dial, Eliza's phone rang. Detective Torres's name appeared on the screen. Detective Torres, thank God, I just got a threatening text and… Miss Morrison, I need you and your brother to meet me at the station immediately. We found something at that warehouse address, and you need to see it. An hour later, they sat in Detective Torres's office, staring at evidence bags filled with disturbing materials. Photographs of Eliza taken with a telephoto lens showed her leaving her apartment, walking to work, meeting friends for dinner. Some of the images dating back over a year. There's more, Torres said grimly, opening a laptop computer that had been seized from the warehouse. Whoever was running this operation kept detailed surveillance logs. The screen showed spreadsheet entries documenting Eliza's daily activities with meticulous precision. Monday, 7:15 a.m., leaves apartment for work. Monday, 12:30 p.m., lunch at downtown food cart. Monday, 6:45 p.m., returns home alone. Tuesday, 8 a.m., stops at Starbucks on Morrison Street. Tuesday, 7:30 p.m., dinner with male subject identified as brother. They've been watching you for over 18 months, Torres said. Every routine, every relationship, every habit documented and analyzed. Jake studied the surveillance photos. Some of these were taken from inside buildings. They had access to places with clear sightlines to her apartment and office. That's what concerns me most, Torres agreed. This level of surveillance requires resources, planning, and access that suggests either professional criminals or someone with inside knowledge of your life. He opened another evidence bag containing financial documents. We also found detailed research on life insurance claim procedures, including timing requirements for payouts and how to avoid fraud investigations. The documents revealed a chilling level of preparation. Someone had researched Oregon's insurance laws, studied claim processing times, even identified the most efficient ways to collect death benefits without triggering additional scrutiny. But here's the breakthrough, Torres said, pulling up security camera footage on his computer. The warehouse had its own surveillance system, and the cameras captured clear images of our suspects. The footage showed two people entering the warehouse 3 days earlier, a woman in her 30s with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, and a man, roughly 40 years old, with graying temples and glasses. Eliza studied their faces carefully. The woman looked familiar, but she couldn't place where she might have seen her. The man was a complete stranger. Do you recognize either of them? The woman, maybe, but I can't remember where. Torres enhanced the image, zooming in on the woman's face. We're running facial recognition through our databases, but I'm hoping you might remember something that could help identify her. As Eliza studied the enhanced photograph, a memory suddenly surfaced. Oh my God, the gym. What about the gym? I used to go to this fitness center downtown, FitCore, on Stark Street. I canceled my membership about 8 months ago because I wasn't using it enough. But there was this woman who always seemed to be there when I was, always on the machine next to mine or in the locker room when I was changing. Torres leaned forward with interest. How often did you see her? Several times a week for months. I remember thinking it was coincidental how our schedules seemed to align. She even tried to make conversation a few times, asking about my work, my routine. What did you tell her? Eliza felt sick as she realized how much information she'd unknowingly provided. Everything. My job, my schedule, my apartment building. I thought she was just being friendly. Jake shook his head in disbelief. She was pumping you for information. Torres made notes in his case file. We'll check with the gym about their membership records. If she used her real name and credit card, we might be able to identify her. He turned back to the evidence from the warehouse. There's something else you need to know. We found drafts of what appear to be accident scenarios. He showed them printed documents outlining various methods for staging accidental deaths that would be difficult to investigate. Car accidents during specific weather conditions, drowning incidents at particular locations, even home accidents involving gas leaks or electrical fires. These aren't just fantasies, Torres said seriously. These are detailed plans with timing, location scouting, and risk assessment. Someone was actively planning to kill you and make it look accidental. The room fell silent as the full scope of the threat became clear. This wasn't just identity theft or insurance fraud. It was a murder conspiracy that had been in development for nearly 2 years. Torres closed the laptop and looked directly at Eliza. Miss Morrison, I'm recommending that you consider protective custody until we can apprehend these suspects. Based on what we found, I believe you're in immediate danger. Eliza's mind reeled as she processed the detective's words. Someone had spent months learning every detail of her life, not just to steal her identity, but to plan her death with methodical precision. The question now was whether they could catch the conspirators before they decided to put their deadly plans into action. Against Detective Torres's strong recommendation, Eliza refused protective custody. The thought of hiding in a safe house while her stalkers remained free felt like giving them exactly what they wanted: control over her life. Instead, she agreed to a compromise. Plainclothes officers would maintain surveillance while she continued her normal routine, hoping to draw the conspirators into making a move.
This is incredibly risky, Torres warned as they finalized the plan. These people have been planning for 2 years. They're not going to be careless now. But they're also getting desperate, Eliza countered. You said to yourself that the threatening text suggests they know we're closing in. Desperate people make mistakes. Jake was less supportive of his sister's decision. This is insane, Eliza. You're basically using yourself as bait. I'm tired of being a victim, she replied firmly. I want my life back, and the only way that happens is if we catch these people. The plan required Eliza to resume her normal schedule while wearing a concealed recording device and GPS tracker. Undercover officers would maintain visual contact at all times, and she had a panic button that would summon immediate backup. Wednesday morning, Eliza returned to work for the first time since learning about the insurance fraud. Her colleagues welcomed her back with genuine concern, but she noticed how differently she viewed their interactions now. Every question about her health, every inquiry about her weekend plans, every casual comment took on potential significance. During lunch, she walked to her usual food cart on Fifth Avenue, acutely aware of the unmarked police car maintaining distance behind her. The normalcy of ordering a sandwich and finding a bench in Pioneer Courthouse Square felt surreal given the circumstances. As she ate, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Meet me at Laurelhurst Park, East Side Duck Pond, 3 p.m. Come alone or your brother dies. Her blood turned to ice. The message included a photograph of Jake leaving his apartment building that morning, taken from across the street with a telephoto lens. Eliza immediately hit the panic button concealed in her jacket pocket, then called Detective Torres. They have Jake, she said without preamble when he answered. What do you mean they have Jake? She read him the text message and described the photograph. Torres's voice became sharp and focused. Where is your brother right now? He should be at work. Let me call him. Jake's phone went straight to voicemail. Eliza tried his office number and spoke to his supervisor, who said Jake had left suddenly around noon, claiming a family emergency. They took him, Eliza said, panic rising in her voice. They're using him to get me to that park. Torres was already mobilizing resources. We're tracking your brother's phone now. Units are heading to his apartment and office. Do not, under any circumstances, go to that park alone. But if I don't show up? Eliza, this is exactly what they want. They're trying to separate you from protection and get you to an isolated location. We're dealing with people who have planned at least one murder. We can't assume they won't hurt your brother regardless of what you do. Despite Torres's instructions, Eliza found herself torn between following police protocol and saving her brother's life. The thought of Jake in danger because of her situation was unbearable.
Her phone rang again. This time, Jake's name appeared on the caller ID. "Jake, thank God, where are you?" But the voice that answered wasn't her brother's. It was a woman's voice, cold and controlled. "Hello, Eliza. I think it's time we finally met properly. Where is my brother? He's safe for now. Whether he stays that way depends entirely on your cooperation." Eliza recognized the voice from somewhere, but couldn't place it immediately. "What do you want?" "I want what I've been working toward for 2 years. You've caused some complications, but nothing that can't be resolved." "You're talking about killing me for insurance money?" The woman laughed, a sound devoid of humor. "Insurance money? Oh, Eliza, you really don't understand what this is about, do you?" "Then explain it to me."
Meet me at Laurelhurst Park at 3 o'clock, east side of the duck pond, just like the text said. Come alone, no police, no recording devices. If I see any surveillance, your brother dies immediately. How do I know he's actually alive? There was a brief pause, then Jake's voice came through the phone, strained but recognizable. "Eliza, don't do it. Don't trust." The line went dead. Detective Torres arrived at Pioneer Courthouse Square within minutes, accompanied by a tactical team disguised as tourists and maintenance workers. They had 30 minutes to devise a plan that would protect both Eliza and Jake. "We've located your brother's phone," Torres reported. "It's at a storage facility in southeast Portland, but that could be a decoy. These people have shown they're sophisticated planners." Torres spread a map of Laurelhurst Park across the hood of an unmarked police car. The duck pond location is tactically smart for them, multiple escape routes, open sight lines to spot surveillance, but also isolated enough for violence if necessary. "What if we put a tracking device on me and let me go in?" Eliza suggested. "Absolutely not. Even if we could track you, these people have already demonstrated they're willing to kill. We're not sending you into a trap." But as they debated strategies, Eliza's phone buzzed with another message. This time it was a live video feed showing Jake tied to a chair in what appeared to be a basement or warehouse. A timer in the corner of the screen showed 23 minutes and counting. "If you're not at the park in 23 minutes, the timer reaches 0 and your brother dies," the accompanying text read. "No police, no tricks, or you'll watch him die live on your phone." Torres studied the video feed, looking for identifying details about the location. The walls look like concrete blocks, an industrial setting. Could be the same warehouse we raided, or another location entirely. Eliza made her decision. "I'm going to the park." "Eliza, you can follow me, you can have snipers positioned, you can do whatever you need to do from a distance, but I'm not letting my brother die because I was too scared to face these people." Torres realized that arguing was wasting precious time. "Fine, but we do this my way. You wear body armor under your jacket, you keep the GPS tracker active, and you follow my instructions exactly." As they prepared for what could be a deadly confrontation, Torres pulled Eliza aside. "There's something about this case that's been bothering me. The sophistication, the resources, the long-term planning. This doesn't feel like typical insurance fraud. The woman on the phone said you don't understand what this is really about. What else could be motivating this?" Eliza shook her head. "I've been racking my brain trying to figure that out. I don't have enemies. I don't have money worth stealing. I don't have access to anything valuable. I'm just a graphic designer living a quiet life." "Think harder. Is there anything in your past, your family's past, anything that might make you a target for reasons beyond money?" As they drove toward Laurelhurst Park, Eliza found herself questioning everything she thought she knew about her own life. If this wasn't just about insurance money, what dark secret from her past had she unknowingly stumbled into? The timer on her phone now showed 11 minutes remaining. Laurelhurst Park at 3 p.m. was unseasonably quiet for a Wednesday afternoon. The autumn wind had driven most visitors indoors, leaving only scattered joggers and dog walkers around the tree-lined paths. Eliza approached the east side of the duck pond with 5 minutes to spare on the countdown timer, her heart hammering against the bulletproof vest concealed beneath her jacket. Detective Torres's voice crackled through her nearly invisible earpiece.
We have eyes on you from multiple positions. Remember, keep the conversation going as long as possible. We need them to reveal Jake's location. The duck pond reflected gray clouds overhead, its surface disturbed only by a few molders gliding between the reeds. Eliza chose a bench facing the water and waited, scanning the park for any sign of her mysterious adversary. At exactly 3 o'clock, a woman emerged from behind a cluster of oak trees about 50 yards away. Even from a distance, Eliza recognized her immediately. It was the woman from the gym, the one who had spent months extracting personal information under the guise of friendly conversation. But as the woman drew closer, Eliza's recognition deepened into something far more shocking. The facial features, the way she carried herself, even her mannerisms, this wasn't just someone who looked familiar. "Hello, Elizabeth," the woman said, using Eliza's full name in a way that sent chills down her spine. "It's been a long time."
Now, standing face to face, the resemblance was unmistakable. The woman could have been Eliza's twin sister, if she'd had one. Same bone structure, same eye color, same height and build. The only significant differences were her shorter hair and the hardness in her expression that Eliza had never seen in her own mirror. "Who are you?" Eliza asked, though a terrible suspicion was already forming in her mind. The woman smiled, but it was cold and predatory. "I'm surprised you don't remember me, though I suppose you were very young when they took you away." "Took me away from where?" "From the family that actually wanted you." The woman's voice carried decades of bitter resentment. "I'm your twin sister, Eliza, your identical twin sister who was left behind when the Morrisons adopted you." The words hit Eliza like a physical blow. "That's impossible. I don't have a sister. My parents would have told me." "Would they? Did they tell you that you were adopted at all?" Eliza's world tilted. "I wasn't adopted. Those are my biological parents." "DNA tests are remarkably easy to obtain these days," the woman continued, "especially when you have access to someone's medical records and hair samples from their apartment. We share the same genetic markers, Elizabeth. We're identical twins, separated at birth and raised in very different circumstances." Through her earpiece, Eliza heard Detective Torres' urgent voice. "Keep her talking. We're trying to triangulate Jake's location from the video feed." "What's your name?" Eliza asked, struggling to process this revelation. Rebecca Walsh, though I suppose if things had gone differently, I would have been Rebecca Morrison, and you would have been Elizabeth Walsh." "Where is my brother?" "Jake isn't your brother. He's just the son of the people who stole the life that should have been mine." Rebecca's voice turned venomous. "Do you have any idea what it's like growing up in foster care, bouncing from home to home, while your identical twin lives in a nice house with loving parents who gave her everything?" Eliza felt sick. "I didn't know you existed, if I had." "If you had known, what? You would have shared? You would have given up your perfect little life?" Rebecca laughed harshly. "I spent 20 years tracking you down, Elizabeth. 20 years of watching you from afar, seeing you waste opportunities that I would have killed for." "The insurance policy, this isn't about money at all, is it? $2.3 million is just a bonus. What I really want is justice. I want you to lose everything, the way I lost everything when the Morrisons chose you over me." Through her earpiece, Torres's voice was urgent. "We've identified the location from the video. The SWAT team is moving to the storage facility now. Keep her distracted." Rebecca pulled out her phone and showed Eliza the live feed of Jake. The timer now showed less than 2 minutes remaining. "Your precious fake brother is in a room that will flood with carbon monoxide when that timer reaches 0. Unless, of course, you're willing to make a trade." "What kind of trade?" "Your life for him. You drink this," Rebecca produced a small vial of clear liquid from her pocket, "and I'll release Jake unharmed. The insurance money will be mine, and justice will finally be served." Eliza stared at the vial, knowing it contained poison. "You're insane." "I'm desperate. Do you know what it's like to watch your identical twin live the life you should have had?
To see her take for granted the family, the education, the opportunities that were stolen from you? Rebecca, listen to me. None of this was my fault. I was a baby when the adoption happened. We were both victims of whatever separated us. Were we? Rebecca's eyes blazed with fury. Or were you just the prettier baby, the more appealing twin, the one the nice family wanted to take home? Through her earpiece, Torres reported, SWAT team is at the storage facility. They found Jake. He's alive but unconscious. The carbon monoxide was a bluff, just an empty room with a video camera. Relief flooded through Eliza, but she couldn't let Rebecca know that Jake was safe. She needed to keep her sister talking until backup could arrive at the park. If you let Jake go, I'll submit to a DNA test to prove we're sisters. We can figure this out together. It's too late for family reunions, Rebecca said coldly. I've spent 2 years planning this moment. 2 years of watching you, learning your habits, building the perfect trap. Do you have any idea how satisfying it was to see you panic when you found out about the insurance policy? You've been living with this anger for decades. Don't you want it to end? It will end today, when you're dead and I finally have what should have been mine from the beginning. Rebecca raised the vial toward Eliza. Drink it, or I press this button and release real carbon monoxide into Jake's room. Your choice. Die now and save him, or watch him die knowing you could have prevented it. But Rebecca's hand was shaking, and Eliza could see the desperation and pain beneath her sister's facade of cold determination. This wasn't just about revenge or money. It was about a lifetime of abandonment and jealousy that had twisted into something murderous. Rebecca, please, we can fix this. We can be the sisters we were meant to be. It's too late, Rebecca whispered, tears streaming down her face. It's been too late for 28 years. As Rebecca raised the vial to force it to Eliza's lips, police officers emerged from concealment positions around the park, surrounding them with weapons drawn. Police, drop the weapon and step away. Rebecca's eyes went wild as she realized she was trapped. The careful plan that had taken 2 years to develop was crumbling around her in a matter of seconds. You called them, she accused Eliza. Even now, even when I told you the truth about who we are, you chose them over me. I chose life over death, Eliza replied sadly, for both of us. Rebecca's hand trembled as she clutched the poison vial, her eyes darting between the approaching officers and Eliza's face. For a moment that seemed to stretch forever, the park held its breath. Ducks floating motionless on the pond, wind stilled in the trees, even the distant traffic noise fading to silence. Rebecca, please, Eliza said softly, taking a careful step closer. It doesn't have to end this way. Doesn't it? Rebecca's voice cracked with decades of suppressed anguish. You think because you know the truth now, everything can just be forgiven? You think we can be sisters and pretend the last 28 years didn't happen? Detective Torres appeared from behind a nearby tree, his weapon drawn but lowered non-threateningly. Rebecca Walsh, you're under arrest for identity theft, fraud, kidnapping, and attempted murder. Put down the vial and step away from Miss Morrison. Rebecca laughed bitterly. Miss Morrison. Even now, she gets to keep the name that should have been mine. The adoption records, Eliza said suddenly, understanding flooding through her. You found them, didn't you? That's how you learned about me. It took me 15 years to track down what happened to my twin sister. 15 years of searching through state records, foster care files, adoption agencies that had destroyed most of their documentation. Rebecca's grip on the vial loosened slightly as she spoke. When I finally found you on social media, living your perfect little life in Portland, working your dream job, surrounded by people who loved you, it nearly destroyed me. Torres spoke into his radio quietly, coordinating with the officers positioned around the park. Rebecca, I understand you've been through tremendous trauma, but this isn't the way to resolve it. There are people who can help you work through these feelings. Help me? Rebecca's eyes flashed with renewed anger. Where was that help when I was 8 years old, moving to my 5th foster home? Where was it when I aged out of the system at 18 with nowhere to go and no one who cared if I lived or died? Eliza felt tears streaming down her face as she listened to her sister's story. I'm so sorry, Rebecca. I'm sorry for everything you went through. I'm sorry the system failed you. I'm sorry our birth parents made choices that hurt you. Sorry doesn't give me back my childhood, Rebecca replied, but some of the venom had left her voice. Sorry doesn't erase 20 years of wondering why I wasn't good enough to be chosen. You were good enough, Eliza said firmly. You are good enough. What happened to us wasn't about worth or value. It was just circumstance. Terrible, unfair circumstances. Detective Torres had been slowly moving closer during their conversation. Rebecca, what's your partner's real name? The man who helped you with the surveillance and planning? Rebecca's expression shifted to confusion. Partner? What partner? The man from the warehouse security footage, graying temples, glasses, about 40 years old. I don't know what you're talking about. I did this alone. Torres exchanged concerned glances with the other officers. If Rebecca wasn't working with the mysterious man from the footage, who was he? And where was he now? As if summoned by their thoughts, a voice called out from across the park. Rebecca, it's time to go. Everyone turned to see a man matching the description from the warehouse footage approaching rapidly, something metallic glinting in his hand. Get down, Torres shouted, raising his weapon as he realized the man was carrying a gun. Rebecca looked shocked as the man approached. Thomas, what are you doing here? I told you I could handle this alone. You told me a lot of things, Rebecca, the man replied, his voice cold and professional. But you never told me you were going to have a dramatic confession session in the middle of a police operation.
The pieces suddenly clicked into place for Detective Torres. Thomas Walsh, you're Rebecca's adoptive father from when she was 17. Thomas smiled grimly, keeping his gun trained on the officers while moving toward Rebecca and Eliza. Former foster father, actually. Rebecca came to live with my family during her last year in the system. Brilliant girl, but so damaged by years of neglect and abandonment. You manipulated her, Eliza realized with horror. You used her pain to orchestrate this whole thing. I helped her find purpose, Thomas corrected. Rebecca was self-destructing when she came to us. Drugs, theft, violence. I gave her a target for all that rage. I taught her how to channel her anger into something productive. Rebecca stared at Thomas with growing understanding. You never cared about justice for me. You just wanted the insurance money. $2.3 million, split 2 ways, seemed like a fair arrangement. Though, given your current performance, I'm thinking a larger percentage for myself might be more appropriate. Torres had been using hand signals to coordinate with his team while Thomas was distracted. Thomas Walsh, you're under arrest. Drop your weapon immediately. I don't think so, Detective. Rebecca and I are going to walk out of here, and no one is going to follow us. But Rebecca finally understood the full scope of how she'd been used. The man who had offered her a home during her most vulnerable year had been grooming her for this elaborate crime. Her genuine pain and desire for revenge had been weaponized by someone who saw her as nothing more than a useful tool. No, Rebecca said quietly. Then louder, no, I won't be used anymore. She suddenly hurled the poison vial away from herself and Eliza, sending it shattering against a nearby tree. In the same motion, she lunged toward Thomas, knocking his gun aside just as it fired harmlessly into the air. The coordinated police response was immediate and overwhelming. Thomas found himself surrounded and disarmed within seconds, while Rebecca was gently but firmly restrained by Detective Torres himself. It's over, Torres said as he placed handcuffs on Rebecca. It's finally over. 3 weeks later, Eliza sat in the visiting room of the Multnomah County Detention Center, facing her twin sister across a metal table. Rebecca looked smaller somehow, dressed in orange jail scrubs with her hair pulled back severely. But for the first time since their confrontation in the park, her eyes held something other than rage. The DNA tests confirmed it, Eliza said softly. We really are identical twins. Rebecca nodded.
I know. My lawyer showed me the results. 99.9% genetic match. I've been researching our birth parents. I found some records through a private investigator. Eliza slid a folder across the table. Our mother was 16 when we were born. She was in foster care herself, pregnant and scared. The adoption agency told her she could only place one baby. They said twins were too difficult to place together. Rebecca opened the folder and studied the documents inside. Birth certificates, medical records, a handwritten letter from their teenage mother explaining her impossible choice. She didn't choose you over me. She just chose the only option they gave her. The agency lied to her. They had families willing to adopt twins, but they made more money placing babies separately. Eliza reached across the table, and after a moment's hesitation, Rebecca allowed her to take her hand. We were both victims, Rebecca, from the very beginning. What happens now? Rebecca asked. I'm looking at 10 to 15 years for everything I did. I'll be here, Eliza promised. I'll visit, I'll write, I'll make sure you know you have family who cares about you. And when you get out, maybe we can figure out how to be sisters. Rebecca squeezed Eliza's hand, tears falling freely now. I wasted so many years hating you for something that wasn't your fault.
You were a child who was abandoned and hurt. You did the best you could with what you knew. Eliza smiled sadly. Besides, you're not the only one who lost something. I grew up without my sister. I missed out on having a twin, someone who understood me completely. As visiting time ended and they prepared to part ways, Rebecca looked directly into Eliza's eyes that were exactly like her own. Happy belated birthday, sister, she said softly. I'm sorry I ruined it. You didn't ruin it, Eliza replied. You gave me the greatest gift I could have asked for. You gave me back my family. Walking out of the detention center into the late afternoon sun, Eliza felt a complex mixture of sadness and hope. The investigation had revealed that Thomas Walsh had been running identity theft schemes for years, using vulnerable foster children as unwitting accomplices. Rebecca had been his most successful recruit, but also his last victim. Jake was waiting in the parking lot, having driven her to the visit. How is she? He asked as they headed home. Broken, but healing. It's going to take time. Eliza looked out the window at the Portland skyline, thinking about the strange path that had led her to discover she had a twin sister. Jake, I need to ask you something. Are you okay with me staying involved in Rebecca's life? I know she threatened you, kidnapped you. Jake was quiet for a long moment. She's your sister, Eliza, and honestly, after hearing her story, I can't imagine what I would have become if I'd grown up the way she did. Family is family, even when it's complicated. That evening, Eliza called her adoptive parents in Phoenix to tell them about Rebecca. The conversation was difficult. They had known she was a twin, but had been told by the adoption agency that her sister had died shortly after birth. The lies had run deeper than anyone realized. We want to help, her mother said through tears. We want to do whatever we can to support both of you. 6 months later, Rebecca's sentencing hearing brought closure to one of the most complex cases Detective Torres had ever worked. Thomas Walsh received 25 years for his role in multiple identity theft schemes spanning over a decade. Rebecca, whose cooperation had helped convict him and reveal his other victims, received 8 years with the possibility of parole in 5. Eliza was there for the sentencing, sitting in the front row where Rebecca could see her. When the judge asked if Rebecca had anything to say before sentencing, she stood and faced her sister. I want to apologize to everyone I hurt, especially my sister Eliza and her brother Jake. I let pain and anger turn me into someone I'm ashamed of. But I also want to thank my sister for showing me that it's never too late to choose love over hate, hope over despair. As Rebecca was led away to begin serving her sentence, she caught Eliza's eye one last time and mouthed the words, "Thank you." 2 years later, Eliza received her first letter from Rebecca written from prison. It was 3 pages long, filled with details about the counseling programs she was attending, the books she was reading, and her plans for when she was released. But the last paragraph was what made Eliza smile through her tears. I know I have a long way to go to earn forgiveness,
But I want you to know that finding you, really finding you, not just stalking you, has been the greatest gift of my life. For 28 years, I felt incomplete, like half of me was missing. Now I know why. I was missing my other half, my twin, my sister. Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I had given up on myself. I love you, Elizabeth. I love you, and I can't wait to learn how to be your sister the right way. That birthday toast from Jake, another year closer to being gone, had seemed like such a dark joke at the time. But it had led Eliza to discover that life wasn't about counting down to an ending. It was about finding the missing pieces that made you whole. Even when those pieces came wrapped in the most unexpected and painful packages imaginable. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.